On today's podcast, we sit down with A&R executive Brett Sweeney from Empire Music, a seasoned music professional who shares insiders' secrets to success in the music industry. Brett also gives us the lowdown on the essential commitment and discipline it takes to make it big, the resources you need to leverage right now, and his favorite must-read books and documentaries for aspiring artists. We also delve into his personal journey, from street team promotions to managing talent, and how he supports new songwriters at Empire. And if you're wondering how to build a network that can catapult your career, Brett's got you covered. Insiders, this is an episode packed with invaluable advice and hard-earned wisdom. You can't afford to miss it. Insiders, are you ready?
Welcome to MUBUTV's Music Business Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage artists and music business professionals who are dedicated to having a successful career in the new music industry. Here are your hosts, Rich Ezra and Eric Knight. Welcome back, Insiders, to another episode of the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage your music career. On today's episode, we welcome the dynamic Brett Sweeney. We dive deep into the commitment and discipline required to succeed in the music industry and how lower barriers to entry mean more opportunities, but only if you're willing to put in the work. Brett also shares pragmatic insights into navigating the business, including must-read books and inspirational documentaries that have shaped his success. We also explore the crucial role of networking, how to capitalize on momentum, and the importance of building a strong, supportive team. You won't want to miss Brett's advice on starting immediately in the industry, his unexpected career shift from law to music, and his stories of self-financed, independent culture in the Bay Area. And yes, there's even a lighthearted moment when Brett shares an anecdote about acquiring his Instagram handle. The episode is packed with essential advice and real-world strategies that will empower you to take your music career to the next level. So stay tuned.
Welcome back, Insiders. Today's featured guest is Brett Sweeney, A&R manager for Empire Music. Brett is one of the team on the music publishing side for Empire Music. And this was a really interesting conversation. One of the things that really stood out to me, Eric, I thought, was the whole thing about how he emphasized about songwriters, how they need to craft strategies and roadmaps in terms of having, intentional collaborations, in terms of putting strategies together and leveraging connections. In other words, working with other people. This is not something that you can totally do on your own. I thought that was a really interesting kind of, aspect and metaphor to be discussing, because you don't often hear about people talking about why collaborations are so important, and here I thought he did that, which was an interesting aspect to his particular profession. Okay.
Yeah, and staying with that consciousness of collaboration importance, I thought, him stressing working with others over working for them and values songwriters who create their own opportunities. I think this is very important. It's very hard, unless you're somebody like Prince, which is extremely rare, that you can be a writer of all your own and produce the stuff all on your own. I think collaboration, and you and I have spoken about this on several episodes about how important it is, and I think several of our guests have talked about the importance of collaboration.
Yeah. And remember, Insiders, what's the definition of collaboration? Definition is to create something that neither one of you could create alone.
Right.
That's the purpose of collaboration. And as Eric just said, there are very, very few people who are brilliant songwriters, brilliant lyricists, brilliant musicians who can do it all on their own. That's extremely rare. Even historically, it's extremely rare. The Bob Dylans and the, Princes, those people don't grow on trees. They're very, very rare. So that's an important aspect. Eric, the other aspect I thought that was so interesting was when he talked about, Empire as a company, that the broad range of their success, in terms of artists like Shabuzi and, Wyatt Flores, and looking at their success in country and how he, basically looked at it from a team effort. And this is true. Ghazi, who is the chairman of Empire Music, has often talked about that what he's looking for are artists who impact culture.
Yes.
He's not looking for genre. He's not looking for, I only want pop, or I only want hip hop acts. He's looking for people that alter culture. So, that's a very important
Which is interesting because
commodity.
we haven't had that since about the 60s. So, when music was shifting and influencing the culture. I also thought that the process that he had for new songwriters, Brett talked about the process a new songwriter undergoes after signing with Empire, involving support in the ecosystem through individualized processes such as co-writing sessions and getting them ready to go for that world. And I thought that was interesting because we've had several people on the show. I forget the gentleman from Disney that we had, the A&R that you interviewed for
Mike
the video.
Daly.
Mike Daly.
Yeah.
That he talked about that. You talked about that whole integration of how Disney has all these integrations already built into their network and ecosystem where they can kind of infuse their artist into each one of those platforms. And so I thought that it was very interesting to hear his take on how they integrate songwriters and talent into their network.
Yeah, and provide a system for them, that systematic element into it. So, yeah, excellent.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy our featured conversation with Brett Sweeney.
Brett, welcome.
Thank you, guys. Excited to be here.
Great. We're excited to have you. Listen, I want to start off this conversation with you by asking, did you always know that music was going to be your professional career path in life?
No, not at all. I think I realized music would be my career path in life after I started working with a lot of friends of mine. So I grew up in the Bay Area, and what kind of led me to music was my best friend's older sister had married an artist in the Bay Area, and he kind of put us on the street team, promo team while we were in middle school. Flyers, posters, at that time, kind of selling CDs hand in hand. And that's kind of like where I learned like the actual hustle of music. And then it kind of really just matured over and over and over again until I got old enough. Obviously in middle school, I'm 11 years old, but a lot of my friends around me started doing music. And then the entrepreneur in me was just like, okay, well, I don't write songs, I don't do music, I don't produce, but I could definitely organize everything around this, make it a formidable business. So that's what kind of led me into the music business. But I originally wanted to go on to law.
Interesting. Yeah, very, very interesting. Did you do any other kinds of jobs in the music business before getting to work for a label?
I always worked for myself. I rather managing local talent, started my own production company, a few different companies as I was, kind of finding my way. Growing up in the Bay Area, everything is pretty much kind of independent culture, self-financed, self-educated, trial and error, learn as you go. So my education in the music business really came from working with independent musicians, artists, producers, and, trial and error, learning. I went to like music business program schools and stuff like that. That's really how all that kind of came about.
That's fantastic. Yeah, you're describing a philosophy and an attitude that I firmly believe in, and I know Eric believes in. We at MUBUTV really support that because we believe we're in a world today, as you know, you're on the front lines of it, where artists need to be far more educated than they ever have in the past. When there was all these systems built in for them to do, just their music, and that world is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. And so what you're talking about from an entrepreneurial point of view, but also from an artist point of view, I think is so, so important.
I agree. You have to be super aware of all your options these days. There's so many different hats that creators have to wear now that they didn't have to wear in the past, as you mentioned. And it's only to your benefit to be as educated on all the different, marketing channels, distribution channels, the methods that there are, ways to market and promote yourself, ways that you can even, handle a lot of the business as far as distribution, publishing, administration, and all the options that exist today. I think you have to be educated to some that you can't just flow by it and just do the creative aspect. If you want to be, around a long time, if you want to be self-sustaining and stuff like that, I think it's imperative that you educate yourself on all the many aspects of this business as much as you can as a creative, and also have a strong team around you that's doing the same, that can handle all the other functions that's necessary for success.
Brett, a two-part question for you. One, how does a songwriter, producer, or artist get on your radar? And then part two of that question is, talk about the specific creative and non-creative qualities that you and your team are looking for when considering signing a new songwriter or artist or producer to a publishing deal at Empire.
Well, for me, how a songwriter will get on my radar is really just the work. I feel like a lot of people kind of have similar, research methods as far as checking credits, listening to their favorite songs and following the credits. So I'm 35 years old. And when I was coming up, I would always look at the liner notes in CDs. I would always, purchase a CD, flip it to the back, open it, check the booklet out, and look at all the credits. And I think it's kind of like the same methods now, just digitally. New music comes out every Friday. People kind of, sift through credits. And I really just follow my ears. If I'm listening to a song and I like it, I just kind of investigate, okay, cool, who produced this, who wrote this? And just kind of, you dive through, try to go through the wormhole. And, but also there's many other ways of doing it. Like, I've been in the business a while, a lot of referrals, studio sessions, just kind of getting in people's business and seeing, okay, like what they're working on, if they have situations or not. And, that's really just, it's a combination of research, referral, personal referrals, listening to other creators, refer other people to me. And then when it comes to, I think, self-sustainability, I think those are some of the non-creative qualities because, and just kind of what level of access do they have to be able to create work for themselves. I think every company, just in general, can't make someone work hard. I think there has to be innate, work ethic, the ability to hustle and create opportunities for themselves. And I feel like if they have that, those non-creative qualities, like, we can come in and add to it. But I definitely think the strength of the team is important. They don't need to know everything, but they have to have, an appetite to learn more and want more and be able to create opportunities. I think we come in and supplement any areas where they may need assistance and also enhance areas that they may not have the expertise or the relationships in. But for me, I work with a lot of producers and songwriters, and some of them are from overseas. And when they come to the United States, I'm seeing them just literally outwork a lot of people who are here. Like they're doing 2-3 sessions a day. And I don't know if it's because they're on, finite amount of time where it's like, okay, well, I'm in LA for 2-3 weeks. I got to maximize this as much as I can while I'm here before I go back, across the pond, or I'm in New York for X amount of time. But I've seen people come out here and just really, really just hustle hard. And I think those are one of the qualities that you can't fake. You either have that hunger or you don't. A strong team, supportive team, people who are willing to do outreach. I look for a lot of those qualities as far as non-creative stuff. Creative stuff is just, obviously talent, something that can kind of blow me away. But even then, something that I can develop, I just kind of look at it like that and say, okay, cool, what opportunities can I create and provide for this songwriter, this producer to enhance what they're doing? Maybe even if it's just on an educational basis, maybe I can connect them with someone who's been in the game a long time and the conversations that they have help take their insight to a new level, and that enhances what they're doing. But those are the qualities for real. Just, hustle, being able to create opportunities for themselves, self-starters, and people who are constantly looking to improve all the way around, people who are building their network, because I think I can add gas to pretty much anything. I always tell people I like to work with people, I don't work for people. So if you create opportunities for yourself, I can add to that for sure. And I think, overall, those are some of the qualities that we look for when it comes to partner with songwriters.
Brett, it's so interesting listening to you because one of the things that I get as you were speaking is the fact that, you spoke about so many areas in the overall picture of what you're looking for, both creative and uncreative. And the thing that I sort of noticed the most is that you are looking for people who, and I guess it's truthful to say, need to create more opportunities for themselves before a Brett Sweeney or an Empire will sign them. And this is something that I think is really important to emphasize because so many, artists today, who don't know the business or aren't experienced, feel that it's just their talent. And there was a time, as I recall, and I'm sure you recall back in the day when the business was different, when if you had the great voice or you had the great writing ability or you had the great performing ability, there were systems in place to do everything for you. And that world just doesn't exist anymore. And, that's why I think it was so great in your answer where you talked about character and you talked about work ethic and you talked about hustle and about building of those relationships, because that I think is more important today than it's ever been, because to just look to you to say, oh, Brett, well, I'm talented, you're going to get me in all those rooms, you're going to get me in all those writing sessions is delusional. Today.
I agree. I think delusion is the right word. I think there's only so much that any team can do, especially if, the roster's large and you have to work across the roster. There's only so much, attention that you can provide each writer. And, I always tell people, just like my grandmother used to tell me, the squeaky wheel just degrees. So the people who I'm in most contact with, usually I'm able to support a little bit more just because we speak more frequently. But, some of the people that are creating opportunities for themselves and putting themselves in rooms and situations, people who are willing to travel, people who are willing to kind of step outside the box and meet new people. Those are things that you just really can't replicate. There's a lot of people who just kind of, sit on their hands. It's like, well, hey, like, I need you to put me in this session. I need you to put me in this. Like, after a while, you can do that. You can do that. You can be as supportive as possible. You can provide as many resources that you have for them. But if the writers or creators themselves aren't doing their best to put themselves in position, there's only so much that you can do. And I always tell people, like, there will be opportunities that come to you, but imagine how much you could maximize your results or your return on investment if you're going to go get opportunities as well. It's a two-way street.
How important is a songwriter or producer or artist team to you and Empire? You kind of touched on it right now when you're considering getting into business with them.
I think it's super important. I think it's probably, one of the most important factors. I look for, continuity in the team. As I mentioned earlier, the education level of the team, not necessarily like in a traditional sense, but just, how equipped are they to navigate the business. And I think those are just really, that's really it. And passion, like, honestly, like, someone who has the passion to see their client succeed may go further than someone who's, more well-connected or more, maybe a little bit more seasoned or experienced, or maybe like a big name manager or management company or something like that, because they're hungrier, and I just realized just during my time doing this, like, even Rich, I remember I met you many, many years ago at A3C in Atlanta.
Oh, right.
And yeah, I met you probably 2015 in Atlanta. And it's just like, I would purchase your music business registry, and I would cold email people, and I would just try to drum up opportunities for myself and the people that I work with. And I think, I look for, hopefully it doesn't sound, too self-serving, but I look for traits of myself in people, because I like I mentioned, I come from the Bay Area where everything is much self-started. There's not a lot of record companies in the Bay Area outside of Empire, especially like when I was growing up. There's a few different, distro companies, but I didn't grow up in a city like Los Angeles or New York where I could see a Capitol Records building, or go to Def Jam and see, or go to Santa Monica and see, Def Jam and Aeroscope and Universal. Like, those opportunities weren't there. Those buildings weren't there. So you have to be willing to reach out and create opportunities for yourself. And as I mentioned, this travel and all that is so important. And I think if the team around them is equipped for that and hungry for that, and doing everything that they can to support the artist or the creative around them, the songwriter around them, then you can go really far. It's really important, because you can't do everything yourself, especially in the times that we're in now that you just mentioned. You used to just be able to be the talent, and now you have to be talent. You have to be content creator. You have to be PR ready. PR now is social media. And then you've got other enhancers around that. They kind of do more traditional media outlets and stuff like that. But there's so many things that you have to do beyond just being a creator. A lot of people are recording themselves. A lot of people are just engineering themselves. You have to be able to do so much now to be competitive and to stand out, that if your team is really there to support you and take some of the load off you and fulfill some of those necessary tasks around you for success, that's uber important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Brett. I'm definitely a proponent of, and I call it, you have to be a jack of all trades and master of them all. It's really, really what it's come down to. So I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, I have to. I was listening to you, Brett, and I'm thinking, you are so right on the money. And here's the reality today for all of the listeners that we have listening to this, all these artists. It's never been easier to learn this stuff. It will all come to you. Back in the day when I was coming up, if you didn't have $400 for a subscription to Billboard, you were kind of out of the loop, period. Now we live in a world where it will all come to you, but you do have to commit the time, energy, and focus to read it, to become educated. And you don't have to leave your home to do that, but you do have to commit the time. You do have to have that, that non-creative quality of the drive to actually learn that. No one's going to do it for you. No agent or manager is going to give you a career. So, that's very, very important. And I'm glad that you brought that up. I want to shift gears here for a minute with you, Brett. Let's just say you've signed a brand new songwriter to Empire. Take us through the journey in terms of what happens next to them in the Empire ecosystem. Is it setting up co-writing sessions with other writers and producers? Is it introductions to, other writers or artists in other territories? What's the process that you will take with somebody, or is it all individual to who you're signing?
I think it's all individual to who we're working with. Some people, everyone kind of has like a different cadence and a different way that they like to work. So some people need a little bit more support than others. Some people want to sit down and strategize with you in the beginning and kind of create like a roadmap of maybe, ideal collaboration, people that are right in our wheelhouse. How can we kind of get, started immediately, working with our immediate contacts, and then being super intentional. But that's what I will say. I say everything is super intentional. Just kind of sitting down with the new songwriter, seeing where they are. All that kind of happens during the courting process, and just kind of trying to understand where they're going and how you can add value. And then, you put a plan of attack together, you put a strategy together. Okay, how can we start targeting, working with certain people? Do we have any mutual relationships, or do we have the connection already? What ways can we achieve the goal that we set out for together? How can we achieve the goals of the songwriter? And that's creating collaborative sessions, that's providing them with education, as I mentioned. Maybe I can put a songwriter with, someone who's been in the game a long time, who's had a lot of success. And as I mentioned earlier, can just have a conversation. And sometimes that conversation can ignite a fire or a light bulb to go off that follows them the rest of their career. It really helps them. But definitely setting up collaborative sessions and just providing the resources that's necessary, whether that's studio time, whether that's engaging with the sync team and figuring out ways can we contribute to anything in the film and TV space, advertising space, gaming space, seeing what opportunities are there, setting up rights with artists, and just trying to be super intentional, creating briefs and just constant pitching, working with other publishers, working inside the building as well, obviously, and just kind of starting immediately. And some of the things that I like to do is start with my immediate relationships and contact sheet and just start putting together quality sessions that make sense. And then once we kind of go through that ringer and that gauntlet, it's like, okay, cool, now we're kind of external reaching out, can we do, or what maybe just, a 6 degree of separation, a way that we can, we can pitch for. And then once we get the records, we pitch the records for potential people that are in the market. And then really just trying to set up as many opportunities as possible. That's where the strategy comes in.
Brett, I wanted to ask you, as a company, Empire is known for Afrobeats, hip hop, and R&B music. But what many people may not realize is that you're also very successful in the country space as well, with Shabuzi and new artists Wyatt Flores and Don Lewis, as well as hit songs with Morgan Wallen. Can you talk more about this?
I think the company is just having a great run right now and putting our footprint in several different aspects and genres of the music space. Shabuzi's having a great time right now. I think he just broke a few more records. On the label side, as far as publishing goes, James Maddox and Young Land, they had contributed to, the #1 record on country radio with Cowgirls by Morgan Wallen. And I think all that is just a testament to the team, honestly, that has their ears to the ground, identifying the right type of talent to work with and partner with, putting our flag in several different genres and just making an impact. I think that's a testament to the team. I think that's a testament of, the capabilities and reach that we have as a company. And we're just doing a phenomenal job right now. I think, everything that you mentioned as far as Afrobeats, that, we've got Benson, we've got Ashake, Fireboy, everything that's happening in the country space, as you mentioned, Don Lewis, Bozy, many more talents. I think all the teams in these respective territories have really put their hard hat on and really went to work and did everything that we possibly could to service the people that we work with and create these opportunities in addition to their phenomenal talent as well. We help put the gas on certain things, but it's definitely, talent driven, team driven, and all that kind of stuff from the top as well.
It's so interesting listening to you speak about this, Brett, because, while we're on the subject of artists, and you know this better than anyone, artists, recording artists, that's different. That's a different career path and trajectory than songwriters or producers. And I'm curious from your perspective, Brett, do you think that publishers, music publishers are doing more in the development of recording artists before they're signed than in the past?
I'm not sure, if I'm being honest. I think, to be completely honest, I'm not sure if it's, everything is just the strength of the team. It all depends on who you working with, kind of what the goal is. If the goal is, setting out to develop the talent from the beginning or from start to finish, sometimes, as I mentioned, some people may need a little bit less development than others, but I think as far as the role that publishers are playing to help develop artists, if that's giving them songs, if that's helping them create better songs, if that's, because the recording side and the publishing side is, publishing is really, really record driven. And then recording side is, career planning, strategy, trying to break the artist as a whole. And there's many more elements to that, touring, brand partnerships, all those different aspects that play a key role in help developing an artist. But as far as publishers grow, I think that's really just trying to make the best records possible and getting them to the right people. So as far as, furnishing artists with quality music, I think that's probably like the premier goal. And that plays its part in addition to, the rest of the college that's necessary on the recording side, anywhere you are.
Brett, what do you feel holds artists back from success in their careers?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I would say there could be several things that hold artists back. I would say sometimes not capitalizing on the moment, especially if they have some momentum. Like take Shabuzi, for example. Now, I wasn't working with Shabuzi or anything of that nature, but I do know earlier in the year, he was on a Beyonce album. He was on the Beyonce album, and I think, they were able to leverage that opportunity magnificently and superbly to kind of segue into his own personal run, capitalizing on the momentum or not capitalizing on the momentum really is one of the situations that hold artists back. Sometimes I would say, misguided, I don't want to say attitudes, but the wrong perspectives, I would say, in certain situations. I think capitalizing on everything that you have for you, that the team has, that's a tough one, guys. I'm not going to lie to you. I think I'm trying to figure out like the best way to describe what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I think there's several reasons why people don't reach their full potential. Some of it is personal. Some of it is, you're dealing with people at the end of the day. Sometimes you can be a lot, maybe just not ready for the moment, maybe not be fully prepared, maybe a misunderstanding of what it really takes to be successful.
Yeah.
Which can be inhibiting as well. I think it's a few different factors that contribute to, why somebody doesn't reach their full potential, what they're fully capable of doing.
Yeah, Brett, what's interesting is, as you're speaking, I'm realizing that is the answer. It's a broad spectrum of points of view, and some of them are personal, some of them are professional. But today, as you've been speaking to us in this conversation, you have articulated and hopefully, the artists and the writers listening to this have picked up, it does take a lot more than just talent and, drive and commitment to learning this business, your business. If this is to be your career, I'm always teaching that to my students, that if this is to be your career, you really have to take a different approach to it than, music is just a hobby or just something I want to do.
Yeah, it's a way of life.
Exactly. It's a total,
eat it, breathe it. Consume you.
That's absolutely right, Eric. Absolutely. It's got to be a committed way of life. And that's why we asked that question, because, the truth is, Brett, you're right. There's not one answer to that question that Eric asked you. There's many different aspects to it. But, the successful ones, and you talked about that at the beginning of the show, have that drive, have that hustle, have that focus that, when a problem comes, they either solve it or they work around it. They find some other way.
They won't take no for an answer. They thrive on the no, and they just find another way around it.
Exactly.
I was just going to say, I agree wholeheartedly. I think you guys answered it, better than I ever could have. And I think, it's so much, you just have to have, this is a discipline. Like you guys just said, it's a way of life. It's a discipline. You really have to live it, breathe it. The music business itself in totality is a $1 billion industry. And I think, as we mentioned now, the access to things are so much different. The barrier of entry has been lower so far that some people may not take it or treat it like a discipline. But there's so much information out there that you can utilize to be successful. And if you're not taking advantage of that, there's so many books that are published every year that can give you the information, the internet, everything, all the information that you could possibly need and the resources that you could possibly need to be successful are there. And if you're not taking advantage of it, doing everything that you can to be better at it, then you're really putting yourself at a disadvantage, because other artists are the most successful ones that I've come in contact with have really taken the time to learn, to be the best talent that they can creatively, but also making sure that they're on point as much as they can be for all the non-creative aspects of the business as well. And those are huge parts of it.
It's a perfect segue, Brett. Throughout your career, are there any books or films or documentaries that have been particularly inspirational to you that you could recommend to our audience?
I would say that my favorite book of all time is Hitman by Frederick Gannon.
Oh, great book.
That's like, I recommend that book to everyone. I probably have read it, 2 or 3 times at this point. I just recommended it to a friend, like not even a month ago. And I was like, I don't know if you've ever read this book, but I think it'll really open up your eyes on kind of how to navigate the business in a more practical way and like a less theoretical way, because it, it cites real life examples and all of that. But also, they call it, all the Bible, all about the music business by Donald Passion. That's a great book. I can't remember the author of this next book. I think it's Randall Whitson, if I'm not mistaken, for the Plain and Simple Guide of Music.
Yes. Yeah, we've had him on the show. Great book.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal book. I actually just bought the fifth version on the 5th edition. So the 5th edition is out now. But the 4th edition is great. I think there's so many books, and there's just documentaries for me. I think it's great because you get, real life case studies from people who have done it, or, to some of the highest levels, and you can hear what worked for them, what didn't work for them. Like I enjoy like a lot of like the Motown stuff. And then some of the things where you can hear from people who've done it, like I think Complex, they had a YouTube series, I think, called Blueprint.
Yes.
Where they interviewed like people like Joey Manda, and they interviewed Scooter Braun, and you can just kind of hear from people who've done things at a high level. I know you guys have interviewed, Clive Davis and many other people, and it's just hearing from people who are around that have done it. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I really like Capital. I really like Music Business Worldwide stuff. And me, I just kind of look at people who I try to look at leadership at different companies and listen to them as much as possible. People who just done it at a high level. Listen to podcasts where they speak, and they can kind of give you insight on their methodology, on how they approach things, and what was the strategy behind certain things. I try to listen to as much informative stuff, like this podcast, and just get insight from people who are in the business, on the front lines, people that can give you real world examples. And I would say books, documentaries, good podcasts that interview great people who've done some things that are transparent and kind of let you know what that looks like. I think all those can play a significant role in helping somebody get to where they need to go. And I think if you can take one thing from all those different sources, you can be really sharp, and it can really help navigate the business and just kind of how to move in general, give you insight if you can't meet that person.
As I was listening to you, I was thinking, every single one of those examples that you've mentioned, Brett, are excellent examples. I mean, Dan Runcie, who does, Trapital, he's excellent at what he does, and, he knows his space very, very well. And, and there's a lot of others out there for the business side, for the artist side. It's all there, whereas in the olden days, unless you had a personal relationship with people, you couldn't get that. And it brings me to my next question, which I want to ask you. It's kind of a personal advice question for you professionally, which is, what advice would you offer for those who are out there in our audience who are looking to become creative music publishers like yourself?
I would say get started now. Thing that I think the misconception of people who are outside of the business, who are trying to get in the business, I don't think anyone's learning on the job. And what I mean by that is, I don't think anybody's in a position that they haven't already been doing or done before. So I would say get started now. So I think if you want to be a publisher, I would start putting sessions together. I would start working with songwriters. I would start learning how to put your own development process together, how to put your own roadmap together. So when you come in somewhere and you get the opportunity, you have some reps up. Now once you do, get an opportunity, or even create an opportunity for yourself, become an entrepreneur, maybe start your own thing, I think you'll definitely learn more from doing. I learned more from application than anything. Like I mentioned, coming from the Bay Area, it's just kind of like trial and error, self-funded, self-research, self-finance. And you learn a lot throughout that process, even things that can help you in business in general, profit and loss sheets and all these other things that you learn just by doing. But I would say, if you want to become like a creative executive, I would say start doing creative things. Start meeting with creatives. Start understanding how creatives think. If you just completely unaware of how it works, I think you have to fully submerge yourself in whatever it is that you're doing. At least that's what works for me. I'm the type of person that environment plays a huge role in everything that I do. Like, I can't work out at home. I have to work out in the gym. I can't do like administrative things in the studio. My brain doesn't work like that. I have to do creative things in the studio. If I'm in the office and I'm doing office work, I'm very much an environment-based person. And I think a lot of people learn that way as well. So I would just say definitely submerge yourself in the environment and start working with people right next to you. Start seeing how you can add value. Start having conversations with people who've done it before and just picking their brain and, maybe taking a little bit from each person and then figure out how you can kind of tailor it to your own unique way of doing things. And I think that would probably be the best way to get started. This is through application and jumping right in it instead of, being really, really theory-based. And you can read all the books, you can listen to all the podcasts, but definitely there's nothing like jumping in the water. You can either jump in the water and learn how to swim, or you can read about learning how to swim.
Great advice. Brett, what have your biggest mistakes in business taught you?
One of my biggest mistakes in business have taught me, that's a great question. I would say not being patient. Sometimes you have to let things play out and see how they turn out, especially like in songwriting and publishing. And because one thing I had heard a long time ago is when you start working with somebody and, they're not the same person year one that they are in year three. And being patient for the maturation process, I would say that just understanding dynamics as far as what you're able to bring to the table, what your partners are able to bring to the table, and how you can sufficiently service all of that. And there's so many things as far as what some of my mistakes taught me, especially in this business. You're dealing with people. You have to understand how to deal with people, and you have to understand that you're dealing with people first. And once you realize that you're dealing with people first, everything else kind of goes off that to lead to success or failure. Really, I think you really have to understand that you're dealing with people. It's such a good question. I don't want to drag it, but you're dealing with people, and I would say in dealing with people, you're dealing with their personal lives, you're dealing with emotions, you're dealing with so many other things, and that really has to kind of trump the business because it all plays a role in the business. So sometimes you have to be therapists, sometimes you have to be. It can't be all X's and O's all the time.
Absolutely.
I really think that's it. As far as it can't be X's and O's all the time. You have to be dealing with people.
Yeah, definitely. It's it reminds me of that great quote that John Lennon had on the last album he did. Life is what happens while you're busy making other plans. It's not something that can be. Quote. Yeah, it is. It's exactly what you're saying. It's like you're dealing with people, and people are not X's and O's, and they're not perfect, and everything's going to work out just fine. And somebody was, one of the things that was interesting is, in the courses that I teach at Musicians Institute, I go over recording budgets, and several of the labels have given me actual budgets. They X out who the artist is to go through. And one of the things I go through with my students is, there's a miscellaneous fund. And they're like, what is that? And I said, well, it's usually 5 to 10% of the budget. And this is mainly with major labels that is allocated because you're working with people. And sometimes life and situations and recording sessions don't go perfectly. Sometimes, somebody's parents die. Somebody has to leave the session. Somebody has to, there was an earthquake and the studio was all, damaged. So they had to book it someplace else. It's not all just, perfect and aligned. And I said, and that's what it is. Or you didn't get things done in the particular time frame that you were hoping to get them done. That's going to cost more money and time. So, it's very true. And you have to be willing to deal with those kinds of realities for yourself. So the other question I want to ask you is, I want to take a sort of an opposite of what I asked you with regards to professionals, which is, what advice do you have for songwriters, producers, and artists who are committed to building a career for themselves in music today? What pieces of advice would you give to them if they're starting out today?
I would say definitely treat it as a career from the beginning. Treat it as something that you're trying to do super intentionally. It's something that you would like to do as a profession, and treat it as such. Be as intentional as you can about, the type of people that you connect with, improvement and dedication to the craft, connecting with the right people, reaching out and foster the relationships that you need to be successful. I think those are probably some of the main points. A lot of this business is driven by relationships, and a lot of people do business with people that they've done business with before. As I mentioned earlier, I met Rich almost 10 years ago, and I've used a lot of the services that he's provided and the lists and stuff that he provides for the industry. And a lot of the people that I work with now to this day in several different areas, whether that's brand partnerships or whatever, like it might be my first time doing any business with them, but the relationship was initiated many years ago. So I would say understanding that you have to plant seeds and you don't bear the fruit and the same day that you plant the seed. But I would just say continuing to be intentional about the type of people that you want to work with in your wheelhouse, development and dedication to improving your craft. So if the product is good once you get the opportunity, and just maximizing the resources that are around you and making sure you're putting yourself in the right places at the right time. It's a little bit of luck involved as well, but I think it's definitely about positioning yourself and aligning yourself with as many as great resources and great people as possible, and then just making sure that the craft is always being honed and developed. So when you do get the opportunity to have the audience that you're looking for, the product that you present is good.
That's really great advice, Brett. Where can people best connect with you online?
I'm mainly on Instagram, and then I have my emails in my Instagram bio. My Instagram handle is just @Brett Sweeney, my first name and last name. Funny story, a long time ago, like when Instagram first started, I was doing management. I still do management to this day, but my Instagram handle was 24-hour management, meaning I was just like working around the clock. And then I was listening to a Nas song. And a line that stuck out to me that he said, my real name and stage name is the same thing. How can you let these other guys claim king? And I was just like, oh man, I'm just Brett Sweeney. I'm like, I gotta find my Instagram handle. So I actually found another guy named Brett Sweeney that had it on Instagram. And I reached out to him many years ago and was like, hey, like, you got the same name. You want to do me a favor? I'm like, I work in the music business. I definitely would just love to have this handle. And he gave it to me. No harm, no foul. So wherever that Brett Sweeney is on this planet, thank you for swapping Instagram handles with me. And I think he's Brett.Sweeney on Instagram now, if I'm not wrong. That was phenomenal. But that's where people can reach me. My email, is in my Instagram bio. That's probably like the best way to find me. I know you can find my email in the Rich's Music Business Registry as well. Okay. So you guys support that. but that's where you can best find me for sure.
Brett, we want to thank you so much for joining us today. We really, really appreciate it. This has been a really informative and wonderful deep dive of a conversation that I think has a lot of value. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you guys for having me. I hope I did well. I was really excited to do this and put my best foot forward. And I really appreciate you guys having me. I'm a fan of everything that you guys are doing, and I'm tuned in, and I'm really humbled and thankful to be a part of you guys' series here today.
I'm so glad that we had a chance to have this conversation with Brett. We had missed him at the Muse Expo, and I'm so glad that we had a chance to make up for that in this conversation. So many interesting things that Brett brought up, so many, and very inspiring, just in terms of his own journey, in terms of building a career for himself. One of the things that really stood out to me in this conversation, Eric, was when he talked about how artists often can be held back by not capitalizing either on the momentum that they've built. This one really knocked me out, on misguided perceptions that they have about, well, I should get this, or how their ego
gets in the way.
Yeah, gets in the way of that. Or, and misunderstanding success.
Right.
And what that is actually in this moment now, not what you think or it should be or, could be in the future, but what it is now. I thought he had a really strong handle on that. And, Brett's on the front lines of this, dealing with writers from an early stage to development. And like what we talked about before, about how they build that structure and that routine for them, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the other areas that he talked about that I thought was very important for our listeners was independence, the necessity for songwriters and professionals to seek self-sufficiency and develop a strong work ethic on their own. I can't stress how important this truly is about becoming self-sufficient and getting strong in the areas where you're strong at, and just moving the needle forward and trying to get that next domino down in your journey. I think it's such a valuable statement that he made about this subject. And it's, again, leading back to some of the other things that, bringing in these other guests in different areas about how to organize your life and how to really, really maximize the time that you've got.
I couldn't agree more. And we've spoken about that a lot, about, how to manage your time, having systems, it's about, conscious work.
Right.
And not letting the time and the energy and so forth get away from you. And it's an interesting point, Eric, because I think the older I get, the more that particular point becomes clearer and clearer and clearer.
Yeah.
Because your perception of time changes.
And your energy levels change too. And you
Correct.
have to learn when you're most, more active, to where you can, and productive, to maximize what you're trying to accomplish on that particular day.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I thought was really fascinating about what Brett talked about is when he emphasized that artists must multitask. This is, you and I have had these conversations. It's what I admire so much about you, is that, you are not only a great worker, but you multitask. When you don't know something, you sit down, drill down, and learn it. Video, shooting, editing, computers, computer programs, putting graphics together. That is so important. Taking on roles like content creation, PR, because today, insiders, talent alone just cannot do it. This isn't the era where if you're a really talented artist, a really talented songwriter, a singer, a really talented performer, that there's a system and someone out there that's going to do it all for you. That world may have existed 40, 50 years ago, but it doesn't exist today. And we've said this many, many times that, in order to build a career, you have to start from zero and build it to like 35 or 40 on your own. And those skills and those roles, I think, are very much an important part of that.
Yeah, I think also too, not to burst anybody's bubble, because we were talking about multitasking, there's a real famous book called The One Thing, which was written by, I forget his last name, Keller, the guy from Keller Williams, that's one of the most famous real estate companies in the world. This is an incredible book that I recommend everybody read, and we'll put it in the show notes. But he talks about that multitasking is a myth, because really you cannot really multitask. It's more, I guess, what you were trying to speak of as a multidiscipline elements. Because multitasking is definitely a myth. You cannot physically try to do two. I mean, we walk and talk at the same time, but you'd have to read the book to understand the concept that he brings to that, which is so true in today's world. But yeah, I thought that that's a very important part. And sticking with this whole theme that I've been on lately, I thought what he talked about with goals and planning and significance of having a flexible yet concrete plan or roadmap to guide your career progress towards specific goals. And again, it's getting back to what I've been harping on with the points that I've been bringing up in some of these episodes that we've been having is, mapping out your career for the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years down the road, but being flexible to make changes as things, change. You're fluid. It's not like you're setting these things in stone, but at least there's some kind of roadmap that you can follow. And we are going to be bringing more experts into the field in marketing and other areas that are outside of the business that are going to help with this. So I just think it's a really important thing for you guys to keep your minds on, is just trying to plan out, even if you don't know what you're doing, but just putting it down on paper, your thoughts on paper, I think will be a really great help in order to guide you on your career path.
I couldn't agree more. I think that is so important because, again, that's about intentionality.
Right.
That's about consciousness. And like you just said, which was one of the most important points, even if you don't know what you're doing, putting it down on paper makes it concrete. Remember, this is not only your music, but it's your career and it's your life.
Hey, Insiders, thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We really appreciate it. To get show notes, links, and everything that was mentioned during this interview, head on over to our official website at MUBUTV.com/podcast/show notes. If you're enjoying the content and what we're doing here on the show, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts from. And don't forget to rate and review our show at iTunes. 5-star reviews are always welcome and help to ensure that our podcast stands out on the top-rated and new and noteworthy charts on iTunes and our space. You can also find us at social media at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter X, all ending with the handle MUBUTV, which is spelled MUBUTV. Don't forget to catch our flagship show, the MUBUTV Music Business Insider video series, airing every week on YouTube at youtube.com/MUBUTV. This show was produced and created by Rich Ezra and Eric Knight. Theme music by Disciples of Babylon, and be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast.